Woo, what a weekend it's been. Hello, you lovely people. My name is Cameron. Apologies if the audio quality this week is a little bit crapper than usual. Not that we've ever had amazing audio quality, but apologies if it's a little crapper than usual. I've had to shift my living room around a little bit because it's been a very busy weekend. So the usual nice, slightly dull corner where I record is not available at this minute. Nonetheless, ladies and gentlemen, you'll notice as well, it's just me, no Lewis this week. We couldn't quite nail down a time to record because of some very busy things happening over the next couple of weeks and the weeks before, as we get into potentially EGX Rezzed in a couple of weeks, as we go to a trip that I'm doing next week that we're not going to tell you about, but it'll be cool, as we get into my birthday, I guess, and Lewis and Lawrence's birthday, as just busyness happens. So apologies for it just being me, apologies for the audio quality, but luckily for you it's going to be a slightly shorter podcast this week, but that doesn't mean that we're giving up on our indie game of the week. This week's indie game of the week is Her Majesty's Spiffing by Billy Goats Entertainment. Now, you may have heard of this game already. I came across it by watching Michael and Gavin from Achievement Hunter play it, and I saw it and thought immediately that this is the kind of game we want as an indie game of the week. Now, the reason I thought it's the perfect kind of game for us is, firstly, it's a traditional point-and-click adventure, although it's 3D rather than 2D. So you're going to be finding items in the game world, combining them to make all sorts of tools that you can use to solve all sorts of weird and wacky puzzles. And it really holds on to that old point-and-click spirit where you really did have to combine stuff in the most sort of sometimes obtuse in a good way possible to solve things. So, like, one of the situations you can find is like controls on a spaceship stop working, so you have to find a game controller, but then you also have to find the batteries and download the drivers onto something and plug those drivers into the console. And like, it sounds a bit obtuse, but it's not. It's like, it's old charming point and click adventures rendered in 3D, as I said. But it's also one of the few games I've seen recently that has British protagonists. So it's got somebody from England as one of the main characters and somebody from Wales as one of the main characters. It's sometimes a bit stereotypical. They do nothing but drink tea and say boyo, but nonetheless, it's nice to see those kind of voices in the gaming space. And also, the other reason this is our indie game of the week is because it's a genuinely fully well-made and well-published game that's entirely built from the indie team. So there's no early access, there's no support in this. It's not published by anybody else. This is an independent team who have made it entirely on their own, and that's a really cool thing. And you can buy it on basically every platform that has ever existed at the minute. So PS4, Xbox One, all the PCs, I think even potentially Switch, for a tenner. So it's an amazing looking game that's genuinely charming, entirely built from the ground up by an indie team for a tenner. You can't really go wrong with that. And so our indie game of the week, Her Majesty's Spiffing, we'd highly recommend you go and have a look at it. So this week, myself and Lewis were not able to sit down and record an episode, so what we thought we'd do instead is combine our regular news section and our topic of the week section to bring you this week's topic, which is 5 of the stories you might have missed in the past week in gaming. Story number 1 is that rumour has it the next Battlefield is in fact set in World War II, as me and Lewis joked about last week. It's worth saying that this is a rumour admittedly from an anonymised source, but the rumour seems to have some pretty hefty weight behind it, including a captured off-screen image of the title screen. The game is supposedly called Battlefield V, as in Battlefield Victory, although that does kind of fuck with their naming conventions a little bit, because we've had Battlefield 4, then there was no Battlefield 5, but there's a Battlefield 1, and now we're having Battlefield V. Slightly, I feel like they should have just called it Battlefield Victory, but nonetheless, the source suggests that it's called Battlefield V, and that it's set in World War II, although it's worth bearing in mind that some of the stuff that's been discussed means that it could be other time periods as well. So whilst the suggestion at the minute is Battlefield V for World War II, it could also apply to Battlefield V for Vietnam, or maybe another time period as well. We think it's World War II. From what the source is saying, it's World War II, but it's worth keeping in mind that this could be a couple of time periods, though it definitely doesn't seem modern. So the next Battlefield game seems to be sticking with Battlefield 1's tested idea of going back in time, though hopefully we'll find out very soon how far back in time we're actually going. Number 2 this week is that a slight snafu on Square Enix's end meant that the Yakuza 6 demo allowed people in North America to play the entire game. Basically what happened is that when you downloaded the demo, you downloaded the entire game and you got to play a locked section of it, i.e. you played level I don't know, 1 to 7, and when you reached 7, there was a gate that said, hey, your demo's over, we hope you enjoy the full game when it comes out. Unfortunately, because people are crafty, they were able to get round that gate, and level 7 did not stop them from progressing to 8, 9, and so on and so forth, and enjoying the rest of the game. I also don't know if the game has level numbers, I'm just using that as an example. So yeah, if you downloaded the patch very early on, before this was worked out, you probably still have potentially Yakuza 6 on your PS4. I do believe it was only on PS4s, but the people who got it and took their consoles immediately offline do in fact have Yakuza 6 entirely on their machines. Bit of a fuck up from Square there, although admittedly a nice one, not a kind of malicious fuck up. You got a game in a demo. If you do download the demo and you do play the whole game, if you don't ever intend to pay for it, kick something Square Enix's way, even if it's like a $5, because be good, pay it forward. Number 3 this week is that rumours surfaced that the popular Platinum game Vanquish is in fact getting a sequel, and it's in development exclusively for the Xbox One. This would be major news, as the game has been as this game announcement has been a long time coming, especially with the support it saw last year with its PC port, and it would be a major get for a struggling Xbox. It would also suggest good things for their partnership with Platinum since the cancelled Scalebound early last year. In fact, it's worth wondering if this is a holdover of the contract they had with Platinum. Perhaps Platinum still owe them some work or owe them a finished game, and perhaps Microsoft is using this to continue with that strengthening bond that they built with Platinum, surely over the course of Scalebound's development. That being said, the project would be going ahead without Shinji Mikami because he has since left Platinum, so the person responsible for the original Vanquish almost certainly wouldn't be there again for Vanquish 2, but if this is true, it would be an absolutely fantastic thing for the industry and super exciting, likely to be announced at E3. The rumour didn't have a lot of substance behind it, and it comes from a person who's known to sort of put these rumours about every now and then, but they have been right once or twice before, so it might be worth keeping an eye on this one, though maybe don't get your hopes up too high, as I probably am a bit. Number 4, Nintendo this week have confirmed that there is a bit of a cock-up on the Switch that might see people's game times being reset to 0. Nintendo confirmed this week that it was in fact a bug and that solutions are being worked on, but we included this in this week's list because it flew under the radar a bit, and it's worth knowing so that you can be extra careful if you do have a Switch and a playtime you want to keep safe, especially with stuff like Zelda, Mario Odyssey, or Hyrule Warriors, where playtimes can actually greatly affect the game. So be careful with that if you do have a Switch. They are working on solutions. How this came about is unknown to anyone. There you go. But the big piece of news that really flew under the radar this week is that Bethesda announced their annual E3 showcase. It's happening at 6:30 PM June 10th. That's 2:30 AM if you're in the UK. Yep, it's going to be one of those midnight E3s again. But this is super exciting, as we've said for the past 3 weeks, as if Bethesda are announcing something, it's likely to be probably larger than it has been the last couple of years. For the past couple of years, we've gone into E3 knowing what Bethesda was going to announce, and the last time they came in with a big surprise, like they would this year, was for Fallout 4. It's been quite a number of years since Fallout 4, and the team behind it are likely doing something, though whether it's the something they announced this year, we don't know. They, of course, have other games on the plate, but it's worth mentioning that for the last few years they've had games on the plate. We had an idea of what they would be talking about. We knew that Dishonored 2 was going to be talked about in E3. It was before it released. We knew there might have been some kind of Dishonored last year, as there was. We knew that Prey would be talked about a lot last year, as it was. This year, we're going in totally dry. We have no idea what Bethesda is bringing to the table, and it's worth bearing in mind that suggests that it's a bigger offering than we've had before. Either that, or again, we get a shorter conference like we had last year, which is more of a cursory glance at the stuff Bethesda's doing rather than an all-out brawl into one game. I personally am putting my money in the former camp. I'm very excited to see what Bethesda packs a punch with, and I think Bethesda Studios themselves have been working on something that we're likely to see. Whether it's released, I don't know, but I think we are likely to see it. So keep your eyes peeled for that one, keep your fingers crossed, and keep your coffee and or energy drinks close, because 2:30 is not a nice time to be up watching E3 conferences, no matter how exciting they may be. So that, ladies and gentlemen, was 5 stories that you may have missed in the week just gone. Thanks for putting up with us putting out a short episode. Again, we only do them when we really can't get around to doing a full episode or when stuff really gets in the way. And this weekend, stuff has really got in the way. So we appreciate the patience. And I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did enjoy it, feel free to drop it a like or subscribe to the channel, whether you are on YouTube or iTunes, so that you never miss anything we post. We put one of these out regularly at 6:30 every Monday and much earlier that day on iTunes. Although we struggled a bit with that recently because the new laptop that I edit the show on struggles a bit with the internet connection when we're uploading to iTunes, so it's been a bit delayed on that front. Apologies for that. I'm going to try and fix the workflow a bit so we get it up earlier on iTunes and then prioritise the YouTube after that. Nonetheless, everything should be in a better state now. This is a short episode, so it'll be up everywhere that you need it to be. Like, comment, we're on Facebook and Twitter and all that jazz, and we'll see you next week for some cool stuff. Thanks very much. Until then, the game's up.